Alright, so we are just leaving Grand Lake and going through this burned section of the Rocky Mountain National Park. This place got hit really hard last summer. Apparently the town of Grand Lake got evacuated, I think, and they're kind of in danger of getting burned too. And you may have noticed that we have a guest with us. This is Eric, trail name Famous. I guess we met because he's got his own YouTube channel. He makes hiking videos too, and we started working together last year. So he's just out here road tripping, living out of his van.
But you know, it's a little bit different dynamic than just hiking, and you know, it's great to be on trail for a month or 6 months or whatever, but the van just adds a little bit of variety to life, and you know, you can do things other than hiking, like fishing and rock hounding and day hikes and peak bagging and visiting friends, and you know, all kayaking and all the other things other than hiking. So it's a great bit of a balance to life.
Oh yeah, he hiked the CDT in 2018 too, so it seems like once you hike one of these trails, you find yourself back out here in the same areas over and over again.
Yeah, pretty much, and then you meet all the other people doing it as well, so it's cool to link up with you guys and be a part of your journey this year. So thanks for having me out here. Yeah,
so he'll be joining us for what, 3 days, 3.5 days?
More or less.
Something like that. About half this section from Grand Lake to Steamboat. So the rest of the route through the Rocky Mountain National Park is still closed. We're taking an alternate on the alternate route, which will take us out to the highway, and then we've got some long, boring highway walking for the rest of the day. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's... So we're entering our first national park where dogs are not allowed. But these dogs are service dogs. So we put on their little bandanas to let people know that they're service dogs. We have them on leashes, and technically we are allowed to take them through the national park. Now we're just taking a break on the Colorado River, right near the headwaters, so it's kind of a small river here. It's kind of impressive thinking about what this turns into. This is a river that carved the Grand Canyon. And we're just about to leave the national park. That will also be a big relief. And going into the wilderness, right into probably a thunderstorm. Oh, that was close. Well, the rain is here. You're looking wet. We've gotten lucky like 3 or 4 days where it looked like it was going to rain, but it didn't really. But our luck has finally run out. Oh, that is way downhill.
Yeah.
Is this better though?
Yep.
I think I'm going to try the downhill route. It's a bit slippery though.
I'm trying this way.
Actually doesn't.
I think that's my first time going on all fours under a blowdown.
Four-wheel drive.
Yeah. We just took a quick lunch break, hiding under what little dry spaces we could find in the trees, which wasn't really anything. It's been raining all morning. It's been cold. My brand new raincoat doesn't work very well, so I'm wet. And it's just kind of miserable.
It has basically been raining all day. We did get a break in the rain a little bit around 1 to have some lunch, so we got some food in our belly, so that's good. And now we have about 1,000-foot climb to a ridge, and then we're gonna drop and cross over a highway, and then another 2,000 so foot climb up to a peak. So we'll see how far we get today. It's gonna be a big climb.
It's like the first plant that pops up after a fire. So this is the same fire that burned through Rocky Mountain National Park and almost up to Grand Lake. Just a huge fire. We've been walking in this all afternoon. Not only does it kind of ruin the scenery, it kind of ruins the trail too. So trees fall down on the trail, there's washouts everywhere. Rivers in the trail have caused like deep ditches, and it just makes the hiking a little bit more challenging. 2020 was, I think, one of the worst fire years on record in Colorado. There were a lot of wildfires and a ton of damage was done. Kind of surprised this is the first time that we're actually hiking through one of these areas, but the devastation is it's kind of impressive. It's overwhelming.
For you to use, but with non-pine trees, it's easier.
Yeah.
Like hanging your
Pretty rough start this morning. Everybody's stuff is wet. It's
and
cold.
dog.
And very dirty. Yeah. It rained pretty hard again last night. Luckily that was after we had the tents set up. But the rain just kind of splattered everything. Even my down jacket is wet. It's cold, but the sun is trying to peek through the fog, so that's promising. And we've got about a 2,000-foot climb up to Parkview Mountain. And that's going to be our last peak over 12,000 feet. So we're getting lower, getting near the end of Colorado. Oh wow!
Oh my god!
Sunlight!
It was probably one of the coolest mornings that I have had on the CDT so far. There was just clouds coming in and out so fast, and 1 second everything was clear, the next second you were sucked in. It was just super cool.
And while we were up there, the fog kind of burned off. And now it's just a really beautiful day. So grateful that it's not raining. Looks like the rest of the day will be kind of in and out of a burn area. So we split ways with Eric this morning. He's getting picked up by a friend, and then they're going to go on some other adventures. And then Amy and I are continuing on with the rest of the section.
We're just gonna go around anyway.
So this is the first section in a while that I've seen a different character to the landscape. Seems like we have kind of moved beyond the biggest mountains in Colorado. You don't have the huge rocky peaks. The ridgelines are nice and mellow and grassy. So that means that we're getting near the Wyoming border. Got some mixed feelings about that, but overall, both Amy and I are pretty glad to be almost done with Colorado. The scenery has been unbelievable, but it's been really hard. And we're also looking forward to getting into kind of a less populated area. Should be easier to find accommodations when we get into town, and we're going to have the trails to ourselves, so that'll be nice too. Amy and I have been doing much better over the past month or so. We still get into arguments here and there, but overall they have been much fewer and much less intense than compared to the beginning of the trail. That being said, we just got into another argument recently. When I look at what we were fighting about this time and I compare to how that would have gone in the past, it would have been much worse. I think we're actually getting better at fighting. if that makes sense. The emotions don't control us so much. We're able to kind of remain a little bit more rational, be more matter of fact, and just kind of state how we're feeling, instead of trying to win the argument the whole time. That was one of my tendencies that Amy has pointed out to me many times, is that I tend to just want to be right all the time. And this is just not helpful. Both of us are a little bit more focused on actually growing instead of being right all the time. So it has been making the hiking easier, I think. There's been less friction between us. One thing that I determined from this previous argument is that it kind of made some things clear for me. On my previous hikes, I had a good understanding about what sort of growth I was looking for. But then with this hike, it was very clear what Amy was hoping to get out of it, but I was kind of unsure about what I was looking for. I didn't know if I'd be doing a lot of personal growth on this hike or not. The purpose of this hike for me is to learn how to become a partner. All my hiking and all my life experience leading up to this, I've been learning how to do things on my own, how to kind of build like a solo mentality. And I've been very proud of that I can accomplish a lot by myself. And I've put a lot of effort into that. But now I'm ready to move on to the next stage of life. I'm ready to have a life partner. Learn how to live in coexistence with somebody instead of doing everything by myself. And I think I'll get there, but it's going to require a lot of patience on Amy's part. Just like the growth that she needs to be doing is going to require a lot of patience on my part. She has very, very negative self-talk sometimes. In a lot of situations, she has this sort of negative self-talk person in her head who's always telling her that she's not good enough, and this voice is always looking for reasons to tell her that she's just not as good as the people that she's around. And it's a very, very toxic mental pattern that she's fully aware of. That's the hardest part. She knows that this is happening. She knows that it's bad, and she just can't stop it. She'll become aware of it. She'll stop it for 10 seconds, but then it's back. And I'll admit that I have reinforced this negative self-talk plenty of times. Not on purpose, of course, but mostly just because we hike at different speeds and I'm usually ahead of her. So she always thinks that she's just not strong enough, not fast enough. And she really gets down on herself about that. I really believe that the way that we talk to ourselves, the way that we think about ourselves, eventually it turns into reality. If we always think about ourselves in a negative way, then that stuff manifests. And we bring that into our lives, and we bring those negative things into our lives. But on the flip side, if we believe positive things, if we believe that we are good people and that we are capable of doing things, then eventually that manifests too. And I think that's something that she's going to have to put a lot of effort into, a lot of conscious watching of her mind, and eventually, over a lot of effort, she may be able to break that pattern. Shortcut.
We just did like 500 feet in like a quarter of a mile.
Yeah, we got it out of the way. Now I only got like 500 more, and then we're done with the climbing.
Yeah.
Kind of. Well, the big climb.
Yeah.
That looks like pee.
Well, I mean, we ran out of water, and I needed to drink, so I had to pee in the bottle.
It's recycling.
Yeah, and it's actually kind of healthy for you. That's what I hear.
I don't know about that. Must taste good.
Doesn't really taste bad either. After it cools down a bit.
Pro tip.
Yeah, pee in your own water bottles.
So, our relationship with road walking has changed a lot since New Mexico. How do you feel about road walking now? We're actually kind of happy about it. We just got onto this dirt road and it looks like we're going to be following it for the rest of this section, which is like 25 miles, 28 miles. Yeah. After having so much hard terrain, a little bit of easy walking on the roads sounds kind of nice. So this is the typical process that we go through when we get a day away from town. Usually we have service, so we're able to look up hotels or places to stay. And the typical process in Colorado is that we find out that the hotels are way too expensive. $160 a night is the cheapest place that we can stay. And we're going to have to stay in town for 4 nights. And part of the documentary project is that we are measuring cortisol levels. So we've been taking blood samples. We took blood samples before the hike, in the middle of the hike, we'll take them at the end of the hike, and then 3 months after the hike. And the purpose of that is to kind of measure our stress level throughout the through hiking process. And since Steamboat Springs is about the halfway point, this is where we're taking our blood samples for the middle of the hike. Unfortunately, the lab was only open on weekdays, and we're going to get in on like a Friday night. So of course, that's like exactly the wrong timing, and we're going to have to stay through the weekend to get our blood samples taken on Monday. We can't really afford $160 a night for 4 nights.
Plus taxes.
Plus taxes. So we're kind of looking at our other options. This is always a frustrating process. Really takes away from the wilderness hiking that we're doing when we just have to sit here on our phone and make compromises, basically. So an interesting turn of events. We sort of exhausted our options with lodging. I don't think there's any campsites in town either, so that wasn't really going to work out. And couldn't find any place to stay. Amy came up with the idea of renting a car. So we were able to rent a car for like 5 days, and it's going to be cheaper than 1 night in a motel. So that's going to be kind of exciting, actually. To be a thru hiker, driving a car.
Yeah, we can drive to restaurants.
Yeah. We could drive out to a national forest campground, camp for free. This is actually going to be like a cheap way to go. But we're still 22 miles from the highway, and the car rental place closes at 5 tomorrow. So we're going to make dinner here, and then we're going to do some night hiking. We're going to try and hike as far as we can tonight because we need to get to the highway like pretty early tomorrow so that we can guarantee that we'll get into Steamboat in time. So it's going to be an interesting next 24 hours. Oh, they're calling in reinforcements. We're just gonna go past you guys. If you'll finally let us.
Did you hear him fart?
They fart.
Good job, pal.
Thank you.
Good job, canines.
So we hiked past midnight last night. We did about 26 miles yesterday. By far our longest day so far. Our feet hurt, legs hurt, but we're at the highway. So all we got to do now is find a ride into town, and it looks like one of those trail angels that was listed online is going to be able to pick us up in about an hour. We'll be getting into town nice and early. Then we'll get to live out of a car for 5 days. That'll be nice. When we get into town, we start to feel more like homeless people than thru hikers. We got into town and the car wasn't ready for us, so we had to wait about 5 hours. So we decided to come down to the river and hang out, and some thunderstorms started rolling through, so we had to set up our rainfly's little shelter. To the average person, that looks exactly like a homeless camp. But nobody's walked by. Doesn't seem like we're bothering anybody.